Chapter 1480, Six Visitors.
Night.
The night was dark, and you couldn't see your hand in front of you. The whole world was shrouded in darkness. There was a sound of dripping rain in my ears, cold and noisy. Zhang Yi walked in the darkness and saw heavy rain falling from the sky.
Boom.
A white thunder broke through the sky, illuminating the darkness. The sea below was surging, and black waves rushed up to the sky. The waves were dozens of meters high, as if they were about to completely submerge Tianhai City, where Zhang Yi was at any time. He subconsciously stroked his arm, and the cold rain fell, making his arm cold. Why is it so cold? Am I not wearing combat uniform? Zhang Yi thought inexplicably in his heart. Boom! Another thunder fell from the sky. This time the thunder was narrow and long, as if it directly cut the entire sky in half. In the endless darkness, it became the only light. But this short light illuminated, but Zhang Yi froze all over for a moment. He stared blankly ahead, feeling creepy, his hair almost standing up. Because in the dark ahead, on a huge cliff, there was a dark shadow squatting. He was covered in black armor, had a pair of twisted horns, and a thick long tail. A pair of blood-red eyes stared at him from a distance. Ming, gatekeeper of the underworld. Zhang Yi couldn't help but scream out his title. The moment he shouted, the huge figure moved, and in an instant came in front of him, and stuck to his face.
Ah!
Zhang Yi suddenly woke up from the bed, looking at the familiar scene around him. He realized that he had a dream. But when he turned his head and looked out the window, it was still gray outside. In the middle of the night, the world covered with heavy snow was pale. It was not the endless darkness in the dream, which made him breathe a sigh of relief. Zhang Yi, what's wrong with you? Did you have a nightmare? Zhou Kuer's slightly lazy voice came from the side. She rubbed her sleepy eyes and put one hand on Zhang Yi's shoulder. The silk quilt could not hide her proud figure and delicate skin. Zhang Yi took several deep breaths to calm down his emotions. He shook his head and murmured, "The words that Tianlong King said before his death have a great impact on me. I dreamed of the guy in Qingdao Wugu, and he wanted to come and kill me." Zhou Kuer was silent for a long time after hearing this, and could only hug Zhang Yi tightly with her soft body. "It's okay. We will get better and better." East China Sea Region, Military Headquarters. A thunder streaked across the sky, and Qinglong suddenly sat up from the bed. He gasped heavily, and his naked upper body was knotted with muscles and covered with scars. He stroked his chest and confirmed that his heart was still beating, and then he breathed a sigh of relief. He sat up from the bed and walked to the window. Looking out the window facing east, Donghai City, which is close to the sea, can see the sea. And further east from the sea is the direction of Qingdao. He stared at the sea, and the slightly undulating sea water seemed to have an undercurrent, which made him frown deeply. That matter. Is it not over yet? In the following days, Zhang Yi and his team have been working hard to become stronger. In addition, they began to train the local aliens in Tianhai City. Xiao Honglian, Xing Tian, Lu Dahai, and others were the first batch to be trained. Just giving them a part of the origin of the centipede is enough to greatly improve their strength in a short period of time. After that, it is to increase the strength of the aliens in the 3 major bases on a large scale, so that the overall level of Tianhai City can be raised to a higher level. Zhang Yi has never liked to do these things, so he arranged them to Yang Xinxin to handle. He trusts Yang Xinxin in how to do it. It was the 4th month after returning from the southwest region. Tianhai City welcomed a familiar yet unfamiliar guest. Familiar because he and Zhang Yi have known each other for a long time. Strange because this is his first time in Tianhai City. This guest is Deng Shintong. Deng Shintong first made a video call to Zhang Yi, saying that he wanted to come to Tianhai City to discuss an important matter with him. After getting Zhang Yi's permission, he immediately drove over, without stopping. He did not take the special train of Blizzard City, which already made Zhang Yi feel a little strange. This shows that Deng Shintong did not come on behalf of Blizzard City, but had personal purposes. Zhang Yi has a good relationship with the Deng family. In the past, they have given Zhang Yi a lot of help, and Zhang Yi has also invested in Deng's technology, so he can get their first-hand research results. Both parties benefit mutually. So this morning, Deng Shintong's car stopped in front of the gate of Yunk Manor. He walked into the villa and sighed at the first time. Your life here is more enjoyable than that of the emperor. Even my uncle's life is not as comfortable as yours. Zhang Yi smiled and invited him to sit on the sofa. Everything is based on sufficient strength and resources. But I am really a little surprised that you would come to me. Zhou Kutter brought 2 cups of hot coffee and then retreated sensibly. When men talk about things, she will not stand aside unless specifically instructed. Even the devil can see that Deng Shintong is not here to be a guest, but has something very important to do. Deng Shintong sat next to Zhang Yi, took a sip of the coffee made by Zhou Kutter and smiled. I don't come here for no reason. This time I came here, I really have something very important to discuss with you. Zhang Yi glanced at him. Just say it directly. You know I am not a person who likes to beat around the bush. Deng Shintong did not rush to speak, but took out an iron box from his body and then carefully unfolded it in front of Zhang Yi. Inside was a yellowed paper that looked a bit old. Deng Shintong gently picked it up with his hands and handed it to Zhang Yi. Take a look at this thing first. Zhang Yi noticed that there was a residue of supernatural power on the paper at a glance. What is this? He carefully took the paper and indeed felt a hint of supernatural power on it. The paper seemed to have traveled through hundreds of years. It was still written in traditional Chinese characters, but it was obvious that it was not very old, because Zhang Yi could still recognize some of the characters on it. What is it? Zhang Yi stared at Deng Shintong and asked. Deng Shintong said to him seriously, the supernatural power residue on it came from an ancient person 600 years ago. So, in ancient times, mutants had already appeared in this world. Zhang Yi was silent for a moment, then laughed. This is not news. Biological mutation is an ongoing process. Although the past was not like the present, when there was an era of great mutation, it was normal for 1 or 2 people with special abilities to appear occasionally in a large biological population. Chapter 1487, Psychology. Deng Shintong smiled slightly, but if you knew his name, I think you wouldn't be so calm. Oh? Then tell me, who is he? Zhang Yi raised his eyebrows, with a hint of amusement in his eyes. Deng Shintong said, the man's name is Wang Shouren. Everyone calls him Wang Yangming. Hearing this name, Zhang Yi's eyes did become more serious. Among the people of Huaxiu, almost no one with a certain level of education does not know Wang Yangming. He is the founder of the School of Mind and was considered by a master 100 years ago to be one of the 2.5 saints in the history of Huaxiu. Because he completed the 3 major achievements of establishing virtue, establishing merit, and establishing words in his life, he was highly respected by countless people. You mean, Wang Yangming was the extraordinary person back then? Deng Shintong said calmly, there is a clear record in the history books. Wang Yangming realized the truth in Longcheng that year, and suddenly realized in the middle of the night that the heart is the root of all things. He also proposed that the way of a sage is that my nature is self-sufficient, and those who seek the truth in things are mistaken. So his heart was clear, and he felt refreshed. He let out a long whistle, which spread for dozens of miles and lasted for half an hour. Such a vision was once suspected by many people to be fabricated. But now it seems that he broke through the state of mind and became an extraordinary person. Deng Shintong pointed to the page. This is the best proof. Zhang Yi could feel the breath of time on the paper, which was not fake. Wang Yangming. Zhang Yi became curious. Those outstanding figures in history are extraordinary people, so what? I don't think this matter is anything great. So, what do you want to tell me? Deng Shintong pointed to the page. Can you understand the text above? Of course Zhang Yi could understand it. If he couldn't, the intelligent system could translate it. Data poured into his mind and was carefully analyzed for him. The content of this chapter comes from Wang Shouren's Xinxue. It records that one should seek within oneself, so as to achieve the state of inner enlightenment and not be stuck in the outside world. Different from the widely circulated version of Xinxiu, this seems to be a completely new version. Zhang Yi seemed to have grasped something, but not completely. What does it mean? He looked at Deng Shintong, waiting for him to make an explanation. Deng Shintong just said at this time, Deng's technology has conducted a lot of research on aliens, alien beasts, mutated flowers, and trees in the past 2.5 years. We found that the source of superpowers may be from the inside out. It is born in the organism itself. To be precise, most of it comes from the human body. He put his hands on his chest and said deeply, now we have basically confirmed this. And we have mastered certain means to achieve rapid growth of aliens by concentrating power. Zhang Yi stared at him. Take power from aliens or alien beasts, and then concentrate it on a certain individual. Is that right? This seems to be of the same nature as killing aliens and seizing the origin. Deng Shintong smiled and said, that's true. But our approach is more efficient. But this is not the point. The current conversion rate of this approach is not high. To cultivate a top-notch extraordinary person, the prerequisite is to sacrifice 2-digit or even 3-digit extraordinary people, which is not cost-effective. Zhang Yi crossed his legs. So, what does this have to do with Wang Yangming's Xinxiu? Deng Shintong said, we have been persisting in researching supernatural powers, including investigating possible extraordinary people and materials in history. The most recent extraordinary person with the most clear historical records is Wang Yangming. Moreover, he is also the only person who organized supernatural powers into a theory. Xinxiu refers to obtaining inner strength so that one's heart is clear and enters an extraordinary realm. Deng Shintong spread his hands. Wang Yangming believed that this was a realm that everyone could reach. However, this was not actually the case. So, although the Xinxiu was famous, to this day, few people can really reach his level. Zhang Yi said, you mean, the Xinxiu was the perception of supernatural powers by a person 600 years ago. Is it also a theoretical guide for cultivation? The so-called cultivation refers to developing one's own potential. So far, humans have not found any means to increase the strength of supernatural powers except devouring others. But everyone has huge potential. If it can be developed, it will open up a huge treasure, like mining. This can also greatly improve the strength of a person. Deng Shintong nodded. Yes, that's what I think. Zhang Yi's eyes flashed with a strange light. But this book is not in your hands now. He saw through Deng Shintong's thoughts at a glance. And now it is in a very troublesome place, and you don't have the ability to get it yourself. So you come to me for help. Am I right? Deng Shintong smiled and clapped his hands. As expected of the famous chaos. He is amazing. He guessed what I wanted to say right away. Zhang Yi laughed and thought. As expected. Why do you think I will help you? First of all, the story you told is indeed it sounds good, but there is no evidence to prove that Wang Yangming's Xinxiu is worth my effort. Secondly, if you want me to take action, it must be at least an S-level task. Let me take risks? This is not the first day you have known me. Deng Shintong's eyes lit up. Zhang Yi's words seemed to be a rejection, but in fact he was giving him a chance, because Zhang Yi was carefully weighing the pros and cons. I have full confidence in the ability of Xinxiu. Zhang Yi, take a look at this. He stretched out his arm in front of Zhang Yi. Then a powerful superpower condensed in his palm and turned into a ball of light as bright as a pearl. Seeing this, Zhang Yi said with some surprise, your strength has become stronger again. The last time they met was nearly a year ago, when they were in Qinling Mountains. At that time, Deng Shintong's superpower index was only 9,500 points. But now, it has reached a level of about 9,900 points. Such an improvement in 1 year is definitely a leap forward. But Zhang Yi still took a deep look at Deng Shintong. Just relying on this page of Xinxiu fragments? Do you think I would believe such nonsense? Deng Shintong put away his power and shook his head. Not by this, but by a woman. She only came into contact with the original Xinxiu once, and she gained extremely special power. That is much more terrifying than my current improvement. It can be called a miracle. Zhang Yi, A person who can be called a saint can't be measured by common sense. Chapter 1488 Lobbyist. Deng Shintong told Zhang Yi about his encounter with Amber. Zhang Yi couldn't help but marvel at it. There are many wonderful things and opportunities in this world, and he is not the only one who can encounter them. It is not strange that Deng Shintong met his opportunity and became stronger. Everyone has his own world, and is the protagonist in his own world. The study of the heart is hidden in the Great Liangdu National Museum in Japan. It is the national treasure of our Huashu country. No matter what the purpose is, I think we need to take it back. Deng Shintong looked at Zhang Yi sincerely. That's your second concern. This mission is almost risk-free for you. With your strength, you can now sweep across the entire Japanese country. The only thing you need to worry about is the Columbia Navy fleet stationed in Japan. But they can't threaten your life, right? At this point, Zhang Yi's heart was actually shaken. If the study of the heart was really written by an ancient alien called a saint, then it must contain Wang Yangming's life's hard work. For modern aliens, its value is extremely great. And there is one more thing. That is the national treasure of Huashu country, and it cannot be placed in their national museum by the Neon people. Zhang Yi rubbed his fingers. He thought of the war that took place more than 100 years ago. Now, it's time to take back what our ancestors were robbed of. Some things always have to have a result. Zhang Yi did not want to prove how great he was, but the education he received from childhood to adulthood always gave him an idea in his heart. The most important thing to take back, what they once lost, is dignity. This is what many Huashu people have been trying to do for so many years. No matter how pessimistic they are, they seem to be indifferent to everything. But people who exist in a collective will inevitably have some sense of honor for their country. Human beings are creatures that cannot avoid relying on the collective to exist. Zhang Yi stared at Deng Shintong and narrowed his eyes slightly. I don't believe you. It's just that you know what the price of deceiving me is. So, I promise you to participate in this operation. You'd better be able to give me a satisfactory result. Do you understand? With his strength, there is no problem in sweeping across Neon. Even if he encounters any trouble, he can get out of it unscathed. This is the confidence of the current world's #1 defensive alien. After Deng Shintong got Zhang Yi's consent, an excited smile immediately appeared on his face. Don't worry. If you find out that I'm wrong, I can give you my life. In addition, to express my sincerity, I also brought some gifts. Deng Shintong took out a palm-sized silver metal box from his body and handed it to Zhang Yi. This is the latest research result of Deng's technology, which can help people improve their strength and break through their limits. At present, it has a good effect on people with a supernatural power index below 9,500 points. He smiled and said, I know that you have a few friends around you who have a poor foundation. These will help them. Zhang Yi's eyes flashed with a light, and he smiled and nodded to put it away. This is indeed very useful to me. Fatty Sue and Uncle Yu's talents are relatively low among the members of the fighting faction. Now they can break through 9,000 points because Zhang Yi uses a large amount of the centipede origin without considering the consumption. But according to the current situation, their upper limit in this lifetime may be less than 9,500 points. Unless they use the fragments of the source of God in the future. Zhang Yi has no better way to improve their strength. But the source of God is extremely precious and not so easy to get. Now the potion sent by Deng Shintong really makes Zhang Yi like it very much. You make an action plan and give it to me. When to set off and how to act, you can plan it yourself. I am only responsible for taking action. Zhang Yi said to Deng Shintong. He always hates trouble. Deng Shintong nodded. Of course. I will arrange everything, and I will send you the information when the time comes. Zhang Yi invited Deng Shintong to have lunch, but Deng Shintong waved his hand to refuse. I have to go back as soon as possible to arrange the battle plan. It is dangerous for the national treasure to stay in the hands of the Japanese for a day. If there are people among them who know the goods and discover the secret, it will not be good news for us. It's up to you. Zhang Yi sent Deng Shintong away and told his friends at home about this matter. Hearing that Zhang Yi planned to go to Neon, Uncle Yu was the first to get excited. He slammed the table hard, baring his big white teeth, and said, "Zhang Yi, you must let me pass this time. Teach little Neon a lesson." Zhang Yi smiled and said, "That's easy. Neon's combat power has collapsed seriously. Since the battle on Qingdao more than a year ago, their top combat power has been almost completely lost. Now the remaining strength is not enough to support them in facing the impact of a team of our level. But we can't be careless. I remember that Neon has launched a new Ypsilon. What's it called?" He looked at Yang Xinshin. Yang Xinshin said lightly, "The evil boy. This is obviously not his real name. It should be a pseudonym or something like that. Those guys always like to give themselves some intimidating nicknames. For example, how poor the king of beasts Sarazawa is." Zhang Yi leaned on the sofa. "Do we have any information about him?" Yang Xinshin shook her head. "Not much. We only know that they completely unified Neon a year ago. The organization headed by the evil boy is called Imperial Demon Court. As for his strength and ability, there has never been any information. After all, after an Ypsilon is born, it is still very easy to sweep the area." Zhang Yi said, "The new Ypsilon, even if it is strong, is within the expected range. On our side, there are 2 Ypsilons and a quasi-Ypsilon level combat force." Zhang Yi smiled proudly. Looking at his powerful team now, he certainly felt proud. This team was brought up by him. Not to mention that he is now a black chariot-level alien with an ability index of 20,000 points. Looking at the entire planet, they are all top-notch. Apart from Ho-2 and the like, a few monsters cultivated by a few top powers with the resources of the entire country, there are almost no humans in the world who can threaten him. After hearing the whole story, everyone thought that there would be no danger in this trip to Neon. But out of his usual cautious considerations, Zhang Yi decided to take the main combat force with him. So, as before, Frog stayed to guard the house and Zhang Yi took Liang Yu, Yang Xinshin, Zhou Kur Muyen Huahua, Uncle Yu, and Fatty Su to Neon. As for Yang Xia, Zhou Haimei, and Lu Kuran, Zhang Yi asked them to stay at home. Hua, the girl he brought back from Nash country, was also at home. They could take care of her and teach her the language of modern humans. Chapter 1489 Arrival in Edo. Zhang Yi had prepared the personnel, and Deng Shintong soon sent all kinds of intelligence and battle plans. The biggest problem for this trip to Neon was not the local power of Neon, the Yuma court, but how to avoid the Columbia Navy. After all, according to the current intelligence, the Ocean Fleet has added an Ypsilon-class alien. The former Billy the Kid has now been promoted to a powerful existence codenamed the Penetrator. Zhang Yi still remembers the ability of that guy. If Zhang Yi had not become Ypsilon, it would not be so easy to deal with him. In addition, the veteran strongman Cadilius and the powerful military support of the Ocean Fleet will definitely cause them a lot of trouble. Therefore, Deng Shintong's suggestion was that Zhang Yi take a group of elite aliens and sneak into the Neon capital Edo to investigate the location of Shinshua first. After all, after the end of the world, the whole world has become chaotic. It is hard to say whether it is still preserved in the Great Liangdu National Museum. Zhang Yi agreed with Deng Shintong's suggestion. So a few days later, Deng Shintong brought a group of people to Tianhai City. This mission was not carried out in the name of Blizzard City, but in the name of the Deng family. So the people who came were all aliens that Deng Shintong had met and had certain strength. This included his deputy captain Bai Chunyu.
But the other 2 really surprised Zhang Yi,
because they were also old acquaintances, Bailey Chongqing and Wu Di. The 2 came to Zhang Yi and shouted, "Captain, are they under your control now?" Zhang Yi raised his eyebrows and asked. Deng Shintong shrugged his shoulders. "You are the captain of the Tengu team, but you rarely participate in the operations directly on weekdays. So most of the time, they follow me to do things. You don't have any objections, do you?" Zhang Yi smiled and said, "Of course not. I feel more at ease letting them follow you." He walked up to the 2, punched Bailey Chongqing on the shoulder, and patted Wu Di on the shoulder. "Long time no see. What is your current level of strength?" Bailey Chongqing scratched his head in a simple manner. "I am ashamed, after such a long time, My ability index has only reached 9,200 points. Wu Di raised his chin proudly. I am now 9,300 points. Captain. Zhu Shuai said that when I can reach 9,500 points of ability index, I will be allowed to form a team alone. Bailey Chongqing frowned and said in a deep voice, Xiaowu, what are you talking about? It is obviously not appropriate to say such words in front of Zhang Yi and Deng Shintong. This Wu Di has grown a lot in strength, but his personality is still the same as before, and he doesn't know how to be restrained. Zhang Yi didn't care. He looked at Wu Di and said, at the beginning, Bian Junwu once told me that your talent is the strongest in the investigation team. Now it seems that you really didn't disappoint him. Hearing Bian Junwu's name, Wu Di's expression also became serious. I have always kept the captain's words in mind. One day, I will rebuild the Black Robe Squad. Zhang Yi nodded. I am waiting for that day to come. With Zhang Yi here, the preparation of all strategic materials such as weapons and equipment is much easier. There is no need to plan, just take them all. Everyone changed their clothes and put on daily cold-proof clothes on the outside and combat clothes on the inside. Then, Zhang Yi activated his space ability and led everyone to Edo. This was the first time Zhang Yi went to Neon after the end of the world. Now he can reach a distance of 4,000 meters each time, so he crossed the East China Sea and came to the sky above the Neon Island soon after. Looking down from the sky, the whole island was white, and most of the area was covered by snow. Only a few large cities can still operate. However, when Zhang Yi and his team came to the outskirts of Zhongwei, they were still amazed by everything in front of them. Zhang Yi observed from a high altitude and saw that the city was bustling with pedestrians everywhere. Although some tall buildings have collapsed, the overall rhythm of the city has not been affected. He could even see shops still doing business on the street. People were wearing winter clothes, walking on the road in groups of 2 or 3, talking and laughing. There was no snow on the street, as if someone was cleaning it every day. Even Shengjing City, the most prosperous city after the end of Huashu country, could hardly achieve such a level. It's a bit strange. I always feel that something is wrong. Zhang Yi frowned and whispered, Deng Shintong, what's going on here? At this time, Deng Shintong and others were in Muyan shadow space, but they could observe everything in the outside world. Deng Shintong said, Edo is like this. After all, this was once the largest metropolis in Asia and the headquarters of the Yuma court. It concentrates the resources and most of the population of the entire Neon, so it is understandable that it will be more prosperous. Zhang Yi touched his chin. It seems to make some sense, but I always feel that something is wrong. After the end of the world, can people still live and work in peace? Most ordinary humans should be concentrated to work, which is reasonable, right? He doesn't think that the leaders of these alien organizations in Neon will be so kind. Deng Shintong said, I also suspected that there was something wrong here, but according to our investigation, they have been in this situation for at least a year. Zhang Yi pondered for a moment and said, Don't act rashly, investigate carefully first. He flashed and came to Edo Castle after several shuttles. Muyan's shadow spread on the wall, and Deng Shintong and others walked out. They were all wearing thick winter clothes, just like the Japanese residents in the city. With the assistance of the intelligence system, communication is not a problem, so as long as there is no battle, they will not be discovered as outsiders. Zhang Yi exhaled and immediately turned into white mist in the air. Without a helmet, the only half of his face exposed outside felt a little cold. Don't act rashly during the day. There are too many people here. Wait until night and go to explore the Daliangde Museum,
Zhang Yi said.
Deng Shintong nodded. Okay, listen to your advice. Zhang Yi continued. Before that, we will collect intelligence separately, not together. It is easy to be exposed. He pointed to the communicator hidden under the winter clothes. Contact us immediately if anything happens. I can be there in less than a minute in any corner of Edo City. Fatty Sue's eyes lit up, and after coughing, he walked up to Zhang Yi. Boss, can we go anywhere we want? Zhang Yi glanced at him. It's still daytime, and you want to go to the Kabuki halls? Chapter 1490, Akihabara. Fatty Sue almost jumped up. He looked at the others nervously and argued.
No.
I want to go to Akihabara to have a look. Akihabara in Edo is the holy land of the two-thorn monkeys. As a senior otaku, Fatty Sue can still come to Edo after the end of the world, so he naturally wants to go and have a look. Uncle Yu punched him. Chun-Lei, what time is it? We are here to do things. Can you stop thinking about playing? Fatty Sue immediately lowered his head in grievance. Deng Shuntong smiled and said, Actually, it doesn't matter. I am more familiar with the Daliangde Museum. Let me take people there. After all, it was my proposal. Everyone can disperse and investigate the entire Edo city. Akihabara is also a very densely populated place, and it is worth investigating. Zhang Yi crossed his arms and said seriously, Then according to what you said, there are also many people in the Kabuki Hall. Ahem. That will have to wait until the evening. Deng Shintong laughed. In the end, Zhang Yi arranged for everyone to form teams and go to different areas of Edo for investigation. He was in a group with Zhou Kuer and Yang Xinxin, Fatty Sue was in a group with Uncle Yu and Hua Hua, and Liang Yu was in a group with Mu Yan. Deng Shuntong and his group of 4 were in a group. The group split into 4 directions and began to investigate Edo Castle. Zhou Kuer and Yang Xinxin were both wearing thick winter clothes and deerskin winter boots, with only their palm-sized faces exposed. They leaned on Zhang Yi on the left and right. They looked like a perfect family of 3. Walking on the spacious roads of Edo, there were quite a few pedestrians on the road, and there were some businesses open on both sides of the street. Although they were all isolated by thick glass, the light coming through, and the signboard girl at the door who was enthusiastically soliciting customers still gave people a sense of vitality. It was as if this was not a world after the end of the world, but a cold winter afternoon. It's so good. This feeling. Zhou Kuda smiled and sighed. It's as if the end of the world has never come. She suddenly hugged Zhang Yi's arm and said with a look of longing, Zhang Yi, we can also rebuild Tianhai City in the future. Let it return to its prosperity before the end of the world. What do you think? Before Zhang Yi could speak, Yang Xinxin took the lead and said, At present, it is impossible. In terms of population, Tianhai City has only about 10,000 people. Moreover, Tianhai City has experienced many wars and has been severely damaged. She thought for a while and said, But it is more reasonable to replicate a miniature city that is 1/30th of the original area of Tianhai City. Zhang Yi did not take up their topic. His steps were not fast, just like other pedestrians on the road. His eyes were always observing the surroundings. Every building, every pedestrian, every shop. After the end of the world, can it really be restored to the past? Looking at everything in front of him, even he couldn't help but fall into deep thought. Walking along the street, a long time had passed unknowingly, and Zhang Yi and the other 2 felt as if they were in another world. At first, Zhang Yi even suspected that everything he saw was an illusion. Or maybe those on the street are not living people, but machines or puppets. But when you get closer, you'll find that they are all real. This also shows that Edo has restored the normal appearance of human society. Even better than Blizzard City and Shengjing City. How did they do it? I want to learn it. Zhang Yi couldn't help but said with a smile. The harmony here can be called a miracle of mankind. Unconsciously, he walked to a place with bright lights. It was still daytime. Although the sky was not bright, there was no need to turn on the lights. But in this area, the exterior walls of the high-rise buildings were covered with colorful neon lights. As long as you look up, you can see them, which are almost blinding. The most important thing is that these are not ordinary neon lights. The huge screen of hundreds of inches plays magical girls wearing cute clothes, as well as large-scale gal game advertising videos and advertisements for various maid cafes. Sir, miss, welcome to Love House. We have underground idol performances here today. A maid in a black and white maid outfit came over and handed over a flyer with a smile. Zhang Yi took it subconsciously, and then he realized that he had accidentally come to Akihabara, the Holy Land of comic book lovers in Edo. There were all kinds of electronic sounds in his ears, and the crowds in front of him were bustling. Comic book lovers carrying backpacks to hunt for treasures went in and out of various comic book stores. "Dad, let's go to that store together." A cute girl with twin ponytails and wearing black and white striped stockings excitedly pointed to the house of love in front of her and said to the middle-aged man next to her. The middle-aged man looked down at the girl and smiled dotingly. "Okay, Eri-chan. Let's go together." In the second-hand store on the other side, a woman with a high bun and a blue kimono walked out of the store, followed by her tall high school son. The clerk behind her saw her out attentively. "Take care, Mrs. Takiyanagi. Thank you for your patronage." Zhang Yi looked at everything in front of him, and the maid cafe brochure in his hand was in. He slowly tightened his hands. Suddenly, the sound of an ambulance sounded in his ears. There seemed to be a car accident not far away. The injured were rescued by several teenagers and were placed on the roadside for first aid. The ambulance stopped beside him, and the doctor with long hair and a thin face ran over to check the patient's condition. Then he shouted to the woman in a pink nurse's uniform behind him, "Nanace, give the patient oxygen." "Yes, Dr. Hirasaka." Looking at everything in front of him, Zhang Yi's brows slowly frowned. He always felt that something was wrong with all this, but he couldn't tell for a while. The maid next to him was still diligently introducing the underground idols performing today, telling how hard this little sister named Termondori worked and how well she sang. Zhang Yi looked down at the brochure and said to Zhou Kuer and Yang Xinshin, Let's go to the show." The two didn't expect Zhang Yi to have such a hobby. But since we have come to Akihabara, it is also very good to experience the local characteristics. So the three of them followed the maid into the cafe. Unexpectedly, there were quite a few people inside at this time. The cafe was not very big, with about 10 tables inside. Some people with bandages on their heads and cheering light signs and light sticks in their hands were waiting here excitedly. Zhang Yi and his friends were arranged to sit at a table in the back, and then the maid handed over the menu with a smile on her face. The prices on it were ridiculously high. Even the simplest heart-shaped omelette rice was sold for 100,000 yen. But money was not a problem at all. Edo was still using the electronic currency issued by the Neon National Bank as a general equivalent. When they came, Deng Shintong used his channels to recharge 1 billion yuan into everyone's account, which could be spent at will. However, in order not to attract attention, Zhang Yi only ordered a few expensive foods and drinks, but this was enough to make the smile on the maid's face even more intense. Dear viewers, this video ends here. Next will come soon. Thanks for your support. Please like and comment on the video. Also subscribe if not already.